first major report into methamphetamine use was released by the Australian National Council on Drugs last week. It revealed 1 in 10 Australians has tried methamphetamine, and even more staggering, 500,000 Australians have used ice in the past year.
Joining us to discuss the findings is Professor Nick Corfts, the Director of Turning Point Alcohol and Drug Centre, and Richard Smith, a former drug addict turned counsellor. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Is this, the papers love this, don't they? Is this an ice epidemic?
I don't think so, personally. I think that you've got to get a lot of those figures in perspective. 1.5 million people have used or tried amphetamines, not ice, amphetamines, the whole big group of amphetamine-type drugs. Most of those people have used them once, twice, a few times, irregularly, and don't go back. Most of those people who've used them move on and don't use them again. Yes, there are quite a number of people who are having problems with amphetamines, but it's not in the epidemic category.
Do you agree, Richard?
Look, I'm going to disagree with Professor, with due respect. I work out there, and what I'm seeing is a situation that is probably equal to, or, well, no, worse than the heroin epidemic that Nick's very familiar with as well, that we had at the turn of the millennium. And you know, we're not seeing the same mortality, but what we're seeing is an increase in the morbidity. I'm seeing more clients coming in that have had psychotic episodes. They're deluded, they're angry, they're violent, and to me, it is a problem. When I ring my friends in the needle exchanges, and I've just done that recently, they said, please bring back heroin. That's what they're saying. So to me, it's an epidemic.
Why is ice so dangerous, though?
Look, ice has a different effect, obviously, and Nick can sort of maybe do a bit more detail on it if you like, but what it does is it's a stimulant, and a little bit like your pseudoephedrine, and that's, you know, the precursor that they use in a lot of these substances, stimulates the brain, and what happens is we do have psychotic episodes. We have people that might be predisposed to mental health issues that will develop them because of these types of substances. So, you know, heroin kills you because you stop breathing, but ice sends you mad, and it can kill you as well.
And there are dangers to health professionals in dealing with people that are going through an ice episode, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, but can I just get it back into perspective? I'm not saying there aren't problems. I'm saying there are problems, definitely, with amphetamines. The figure that keeps on being quoted, 500,000 people have tried ice, that's not what the ANCD was saying. 500,000 people have tried amphetamines in the last 12 months. Australia-wide. And as I say, the majority of those people don't continue using and move on and don't use the drug again. I'm not saying there aren't problems, and what Richard's describing is absolutely true. There isn't a trend upwards. All the figures show that the numbers of people trying or using amphetamines are staying stable since around 2000. What Richard is seeing and what we're seeing generally is that there are a number of people who've been using amphetamines, and particularly crystal meth or ice, for a long period of time now at heavy doses, and they're starting to get the real nasty psychosis that Richard's talking about. And yes, in those situations people can become violent and aggressive. But if you go to an accident emergency department of a hospital casualty, of a hospital, or you talk to the ambulance drivers or whatever, is this a new phenomenon? Well, yeah, in relation to amphetamines it's relatively new, but in relation to alcohol they've been seeing that forever. This is not a worse phenomenon than what we see day by day at a much, much higher rate with alcohol.
But why? I don't understand why you're keen to downplay the ice epidemic.
Well, I've been trying to think of the best way to put it, and let me try and put it like this. If Australia's your living room, there are some nasty things in your living room. And some of those nasty things are like rats. You know, they're very nasty to live with, and we've got to do something about them. We're concentrating on those rats to get rid of them, and we should do, because they're nasty and they're hurting our quality of life. Behind us is the elephant that's trampling our living room, and that's alcohol. I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned. We definitely should be concerned about amphetamines. And the big point that the ANCD came up with in its report, and one I think Richard would totally agree with, is that we have totally inadequate treatment services to deal with people who are having problems with amphetamines. We need more treatment services for people having problems with amphetamines.
Why don't we have them then?
I think that in general terms, the drug and alcohol treatment sector in Australia has been routinely underfunded for years.
And it's certainly...
It's amphetamines, yes, we have problems dealing with amphetamines through our treatment services. There's other issues around amphetamines too. People with amphetamine problems don't tend to go to drug and alcohol treatment services, partly because they don't get an adequate response. but partly because they don't get into trouble around the drug, they get into trouble around other things. They see the ambulance service, mental health services, police, and there are not the linkages to flow them through from those contexts through to effective drug treatment.
There's the problem.
You just said people using methamphetamines don't get an adequate response. What do you mean?
Well,
what does that mean?
Let me talk about an ambulance driver I was talking to on the weekend. Over any day over the weekend, they'll have 2 to 8 people that are violent. Now, they didn't get that with alcohol. What's happening now is the government is unable to respond quick enough. What we've got is treatment services that are geared up